capital preservation, income, and growth. And those are the three things that investors are typically out looking for. And they're happy if they get one or maybe two of those. But self-storage provides all three, right? You're investing in a hard asset, so your capital is pretty well preserved. There is a business sitting on top of the asset, which is generating income, so we can pay our investors a dividend. And then at the end, if we've done our job, we've increased the net operating income, which therefore increases the value of the property. And so there's that potential growth component as well. So that's what we really like about self-storage.
Tim is one of the most authentic and genuine people I've ever met.
Sincerely believe he's coming from a position of giving, and that means a lot.
You're going to make huge progress.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Capital Raising Show. I'm your host, Tim Mai. And today I have an amazing guest on the line with us, Tom Dunkel. Tom has been in the corporate finance, merger and acquisitions, real estate investing for a long time. And he got into the self-storage in 2019, has done a ton of deals there, over 483,000 square feet of storage units. That's a lot of units. And Tom has a pretty wide range in terms of the type of money he raised money for: self-storage, distressed debt, hard money, over $50 million worth of different type of capital he raised money for. Super excited to interview Tom, and Tom is the Chief Investment Officer of Bell Road Storage Group. So with that, let's give Tom a big welcome, y'all. Woohoo! All right. Okay, Tom. Yes, if you can share with everybody a little bit about your background and what got you into this syndication space.
Yeah, sure, Tim. It's great to be with you today. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And wow, you've got a great crowd here. I'm really impressed. A lot of
Thank you.
Sharp folks here from the intros that we did a little bit ago. It's great to be here. Yeah, so my name's Tom Dunkel. I'm Chief Investment Officer here at Bell Road Storage Group. But I started out life after business school in corporate America. So I was with an aerospace company that was growing aggressively through mergers and acquisitions. So I really got my deal bug there. So I've been doing deals ever since then. That was in the late 90s. Worked with some amazing people, Wharton MBAs, Harvard MBAs, Chicago MBAs, just all these super sharp people, retired Air Force colonels, retired Navy fighter pilots. And I even met a handful of astronauts as well. So it was just an amazing environment. It's the whole law of association, Tim, where you become the average of the five people you hang out with the most. And not like I was hanging out with them all that much, but I was certainly exposed to just some great people. From there, I jumped into investment banking. My timing there wasn't great because I ended up in the late 90s, early 2000s doing technology investment banking. So those of you who are old enough to remember that era is when the big bubble blew up with every internet company was going to be worth a gazillion dollars. And it was all about eyeballs and clicks and all that stuff. And frankly, it didn't make a lot of sense to me as a number crunching business guy. But hey, everybody got excited about it. They all jumped on board. And of course, millions and millions of dollars was raised and lost in that world. My company went from about 100 or so people down to 5. I was not one of the remaining 5. I had to reinvent. Got into some other corporate jobs. And then when I was fired again in 2006, I was like, you know what, there's got to be a better way here. So I'd always aspired to do something on my own. So I wouldn't recommend that people out there that are looking maybe to break away from their W-2 job, I wouldn't recommend getting fired, because when you are abruptly kicked out into the world and you've got, like for me, I had young kids at home. It was a little nerve-wracking. So if anyone out there listening is thinking of getting out of their W-2 and getting into real estate or something, I would say take a little more measured approach than what I did, because it was a little rough there for a while. But hey, that was 17 years ago, and I'm still here standing and fighting today. And so I've been able to do some cool stuff, again, surrounding myself with some really sharp people. For example, Jeff Greenberg is out there in the audience. He and I got to meet through our Raise Masters group. So he's a super sharp guy. And just being able to surround yourself with different people that you can learn from and everything has really been key for me in terms of me getting into different asset classes and how to raise money the right way and how to build a team and all those kinds of things. That's my high level intro, Tim. I'll take a breath and let you kind of ask a question.
Yeah, definitely. You obviously have a ton of experience. And yeah, so what got you into, I know you were doing distressed debt and hard money. What got you into this self-storage syndication space?
Sure. Yeah. Again, just a little bit of background. So 2006 is when I got booted from my corporate job. So obviously right at the beginning of the Great Recession, right? So I proceeded to get my butt kicked those next few years because I got into residential real estate. I was trying to do wholesaling and fixing and flipping and whatnot. And so as that market got crushed, I had to find something else. I had to reinvent. And so it was in that time frame that I started hearing about distressed mortgage debt and how you could buy the paper and not have to own the bricks and deal with the tenants. And instead you're dealing with a borrower. And so for me, with my background in corporate finance, that really resonated with me. So cobbled together a few bucks that I had left at the end of the Great Recession and started buying one loan and then two loans, had some success, raised a little bit of friends and family money, connected with my partner, Joe Downs. We've been partners ever since, 13 years. Then we bought 20 loans, and then we had some success and bought 100 loans. And then we had some success and bought 500 loans. And now fast forward to today, we've acquired over 11,000 loans and we've generated over $50 million of revenue in that business.
Oh, wow.
We started out small and figured it out. So that was all great. And we still are in the distressed debt business today. However, it's extremely unpredictable. And we're at the mercy of the banks that are out there selling these bad loans, right? It's not like we can knock on the door of Big Bank USA and say, hey, sell us some loans. It's strictly driven by them and their internal process. For me as a business guy and a planner and that sort of thing, it was impossible really to build a business plan. However, when those deals did come out, we made a lot of money. So it allowed us to look at other things. So we looked at hard money lending. We were so bad at it the first time, we tried it again and we lost again on hard money lending. It's a lot harder business than people might think because it's super competitive, right? So around about 2017, 2018, we started hearing more about self-storage and how it was becoming more mainstream, and it's a highly fragmented industry, which a lot of people don't know. You know, the big names that you've heard of, Public Storage, Extra Space, CubeSmart, those big guys only control about 25, 30% of the market. The rest of it is onesie, twosie, mom and pop owners that really don't know how to run a business. So therein lied a huge opportunity, right? Because there's 55,000 self-storage facilities around the country. So you do the math, there's about 40,000, 35,000, give or take, mom and pop self-storage facilities. So we, with our business acumen and our team that I was mentioning, our operations experts and marketing experts and whatnot, we can go in to these facilities and we can run them like a real business. We can turn them around. We can push the rates up to test that supply and demand curve. And we can implement technology, which is a huge advantage. And so we started seeing all of these things really lining up nicely in the self-storage business. And so we decided to go after it. We joined a mastermind group in 2019. And then we started building out our team and getting our processes in place. And then we didn't acquire our first facility until 2020 because we wanted to make sure we had all those things in place ahead of time. So now we've been off to the races a little bit. We're about, actually tomorrow, we're closing on our 13th facility. And we're in 7 states up and down, primarily the East Coast. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun and doing some great deals.
That is phenomenal. Yeah. So you didn't buy your first since 2020, just in the last 2-3 years, 13 properties is, a lot of properties. So that's really good. You've been on a buying spree. Yeah, I'm curious. So when you were doing the distressed debts, was that the first time you raised money?
It was that's a good question. It was the first time I raised money, for my own business. Of course, I had come out of corporate America where I did over $1 billion worth of capital raising there. But as far as my entrepreneurial career, that was my first go around of cobbling together 50 grand, 10 grand a piece from a few different family members kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I remember those REO days and bulk packages of
Mhm.
REOs and notes and daisy chains and
Oh
you know.
yeah. Oh yeah. You could get tangled up pretty
Yeah,
easily.
yeah,
Yeah.
the good old days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned about raising money in the corporate side. I'm just curious on that. What type of money on that side were you raising from institutionals or from mom and pop retail investors, or what type of money was that?
Yeah. So in my corporate life, it was strictly from institutional. So it was
Okay.
private equity funds. Yeah, large, super high net worth investors, but they were mostly institutions. And then on the lending side, it was all bank lending. And some of you out there might know this, but banks syndicate also.
Mm,
So for example, one of the deals we did, there was a $140 million debt piece associated with that deal. And so there wasn't one bank that did all of that. I forget exactly how many, but I think it was 4 or 5 banks got together to put up the 140 million. So banks syndicate too.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's okay. Good to know. That's pretty interesting. Raising money for distressed debt, raising money for hard money, and now raising money for self-storage. What are the differences that you see in the people that you're talking to? Are they different people? Are they different risk tolerance? Yeah, share with us some insights into the investor
Mhm.
avatar.
Yeah, that's an outstanding question, Tim, because they are quite different across those different asset classes. And I think folks that are out there in different asset classes, whether it's multifamily, oil and gas, whatever, you're going to have people with investors with different sensibilities, different trigger points, different goals, right? And so that's what we really encourage from our investors is, hey, take a minute to figure out what are your goals? What is it that you're trying to accomplish by investing in this deal or that deal? So, for example, in distressed debt, as I mentioned, it's a little bit of the Wild West, the distressed mortgage debt industry. So we had investors in that business that were more like trader mentality. Like they wanted us to buy the portfolio of loans and they wanted us to liquidate as quickly as possible. And thankfully, there was a big enough spread in there so we could liquidate the loans and deliver a really nice return to them, and then try to go do it again when another pool came up. But what we realized was that, hey, if we're selling these loans to these guys over here, and then they're coming back to us later with more money, it's like those guys are making a nice return too. So in other words, we might be leaving too much meat on the bone, or we're definitely leaving meat on the bone for the next guys. So now, thankfully, as our business has grown, we've been able to fund those acquisitions internally. So now we're buying at wholesale and we're able to liquidate the portfolio on our own time frame and try to capture all of that value. But yeah, those first investors were more like trader mentality. They wanted to get in and get out. Hard money, right? Those are pretty conservative investors because we're taking a secured first lien position on a hard asset, right? And so that's pretty secure. Hard money is hard money because things can still go sideways a little bit when you're dealing with a distressed property or maybe a borrower that isn't a sterling credit. So, they're making a nice high return and they're getting payments every month. So that appeals to that type of investor that maybe is in a retirement situation or they're looking to supplement their income because there's no upside to that, right? It's just you get your monthly payments and then you get your money back at the end. So that's a completely different kind of investor than the distressed debt investor. And then in self-storage, we have investors who are wanting all those things. And that's how we position ourselves out there in the world. If anyone's seen Belrose Storage Group on social media, you'll see that we're often touting capital preservation, income, and growth. And those are the 3 things that investors are typically out looking for. And they're happy if they get 1 or maybe 2 of those. But self-storage provides all 3, right? You're investing in a hard asset. So your capital is pretty well preserved. There is a business sitting on top of the asset, which is generating income. So we can pay our investors a dividend. And then at the end, if we've done our job, we've increased the net operating income, which therefore increases the value of the property. And so there's that potential growth component as well. So that's what we really like about self-storage.
Gotcha. That's pretty awesome. So itself sounds like you're still doing the distressed debt. So are you still running all three of these businesses, or it's just the distressed debt and the self-storage?
Come on, Tim. I've been an entrepreneur now for 17 years. I got to keep things interesting. I got to keep things moving around. So we are winding down we're winding down our hard money lending business. But one of the things we saw during COVID as an opportunity, because we're a pretty small, agile firm here at Belrose. So we got into the short-term rental business.
Okay.
So we acquired 11 properties up around a lake. I don't know where everyone is from, but here in Pennsylvania, there's an area called the Pocono Mountains, which is equidistant from New York City and Philadelphia. So during COVID, when people were trying to get out of those major cities, we had tens and tens of millions of people who were looking to go to a lake and mountain area like the Pocono Mountains for short-term rentals. So we just jumped on that opportunity and picked up a portfolio of properties there. But yeah, I spend my time personally, and really our core here is on storage. I think we're all spending over 90% of our time on our storage business. We have people running our distressed debt business and our short-term rental business. And like I said, we're winding down the hard money lending business because we just see so much opportunity in the future for storage.
Gotcha. In terms of raising money for self-storage right now in this market, what are some of the challenges you're running into, and how are you navigating through that?
Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting time right now with interest rates up. Obviously, cost of debt is up as well. And investors are a little skittish because there's obviously been a lot of volatility in all different asset classes recently. So I'll share a little tip with folks out there, although it might be a little premature because we haven't quite proven it out yet. But what we've started to do, Tim, is we've added to our capital stack, right? We have our bank debt and we have our equity that we raise through syndication, but we're putting in a layer in between. It's called preferred equity. And so we're raising about a quarter of our total equity needed. We're raising as private equity. And so for folks out there that don't know what that is, preferred equity is preferred to what I'll call the common equity, right? So they get a higher monthly dividend payout, but they get a lower back-end profit split. So it really appeals to those investors that might be a little bit skittish about the way the world is right now, and they don't want to take the extra risk of pure equity. So we're paying them a 9% preferred dividend and only 5% of the back end. So what that does is it ultimately lowers our overall cost of capital. And so it allows us to pay more to the common equity holders. And also it puts more money in the pockets of the GPs at the end because our overall cost of capital is lower. So sorry if I'm getting,
that's perfect.
The details here of corporate financial engineering, but that's what we've started to do, Tim. And we're really excited about it. I hope maybe I can report back to you after this upcoming capital raise, how that went. But I think everyone out there can use that in their toolkit when they're putting together their next capital raise.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely start to see that more and more. Typically, how much, the preferred equity, how much do they typically come in at?
What do you mean?
Like how much in capital?
Yeah, so I know there's probably a lot of multifamily folks on this call. So, multifamily deals are typically bigger than the self-storage deals. So our average acquisition is probably around $3 million, Tim.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe the biggest one we've done so far is 6.5. So, that's part of that whole mom and pop nichiness of self-storage. So the raise that we're doing starting later this week, we're raising about 1.7 million. So we've earmarked 500,000 of that for preferred equity, and 1.2 will be common.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I understand now. So I'm just curious now, since the amount is fairly small, that type of audience, are you going after the private lenders that you normally raise money from for your hard money loan to be your preferred equity investor on the self-storage? No.
We're not, we've looked at that, Tim, in an acquisition that we had last fall. We looked at bringing in a more institutional preferred equity player. It didn't work out. But for this one that we're about ready to embark on, we are just going to our regular investor list. And we're saying,
Oh,
hey,
okay.
here's an opportunity for you to invest in preferred equity or common. Or
I
if you want,
understand.
you can split. You can, if you're putting up 100 grand, our average investor is 100,000. If you want to put up 50 grand into the preferred and 50 in the common, then you can get a nice little blended rate.
Gotcha. Okay, I understand. I'm curious about the self-storage side. So with the deal size that you buy, around $3 to $6 million there, how big are those facilities? Like how many square feet is that typically?
So let's see, the 6.5 million facility. It came with a vacant lot, so I'm gonna take that out of the equation. So we
Okay.
paid about 500,000 for the vacant lot. So 6 million went to the actual existing facility. So this was an all indoor 2-story climate controlled facility, and it's about 30 to 33,000 square feet.
Okay, so they're not huge. So the
Now,
institutional players are probably not going after these facilities. Is that correct?
that's correct. And that's exactly why we like where we are in the world. But to your point, Tim, the extra lot that we bought,
Yeah.
we're going to build another 30,000 square footer on that. And then the two, because they're right next door to each other. And then we're going to have about 62, 63, 64,000 square feet when all is said and done. And that's going to be big enough to attract a more institutional buyer. And so in theory, we'll get a compressed cap rate on that. So we'll get a little juice going there, which will be good.
I like that. I like that. Okay. So
Yeah.
so the institutional, what is their typical range that they're looking for and how big the facility is that have them be interested?
On the out sale, you mean?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Like, what size facilities are the institutional players normally go after?
yeah, so the institutions, they're wanting a minimum 50,000 square feet. Most of them want to buy the nice, shiny, brand new classic 100,000 square foot, 3, 4, 5 stories in a primary, maybe a secondary market. During the slowdown and during kind of the COVID era, they were starting to buy out further into more secondary and tertiary. But where we found a nice niche for us is in the secondary and tertiary markets. So we're buying facilities that are like 20 to 50,000. Actually, last November, we bought a 66,000 square foot facility in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So we're in that world where we're below the institutions, but we're above the onesie twosie investors.
Okay. And then how big is that extra land that you bought to put the extra 30,000 square feet on?
Yeah, good question. It's 4 or 5 acres.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some land right now that I'm still researching to see what would be the best use for them. Self-storage does make a lot of sense because D.R. Horton is developing 600 acres very near me.
Okay.
And yeah, thanks to them, they're bringing the city utilities through my land. So it greatly increases the value. Greatly increase the value of my land. And so I'm trying to think, do I want to do it's a 30 acres. So I'm trying to think, okay, do I want to do build a rent subdivision? Do I want to do multifamily, self-storage? And so I'm going through that process right now. That's why I'm curious.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, happy to partner with you on a storage deal. We can help you analyze the market because that's, of course, a huge part of what we do. It's one thing to look at the property itself, but we spend a lot of time looking at the surrounding market to see what are the housing starts, what are the commercial drivers, what's the population doing, what's the income doing, what's the crime look like, the poverty. So we're looking at that very comprehensively as part of our overall due diligence for a facility.
Gotcha. And what markets do you invest in?
We are generally speaking on the East Coast. So we have facilities from Maryland down to Florida. We've got one outlier up in New York State, and then we've got one over in Kentucky. We're looking at some more things in like the Tennessee area, Alabama. but we're generally on the East Coast and the states touching the
I see.
states on the East Coast.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here in Texas. We're in the great state of Texas.
A lot of storage down there.
a
I tell
lot.
you, we've looked at tons of deals in Texas and they never seem to pencil for us because we just can't get comfortable with all the available storage down there.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to
Yeah.
know. Yes, in terms of the back to capital raising side of things, your investor type, I know you do a lot of social media. Do you have a specific avatar that targets that you go after? If so, who are they?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, Tim. And it's something that we're trying to actually get better about. We're trying to actually niche down even further because what we're learning is that the more you can niche down to really identify your investor avatar, actually the less money you can spend in marketing and you can get a higher ROI on that. So yeah, so for us, me and my business partners, for better or worse, we're all golfers. So we're targeting folks out there who like the golf lifestyle. We also are targeting business owners, which includes physicians and dentists and chiropractors and attorneys and those kinds of professionals who are running their own shop, because we've been in our own business now for all these years. So we can share those trials and tribulations and make that connection with those kinds of folks. And then, of course, we are a 506c shop, so we're only working with accredited investors. So sadly, we generate a lot of leads for folks that we can't work with. So we're actually working on we got a couple ideas of what we can do with those folks who aren't accredited, but that's where we are right now, Tim.
I see. Okay. Are you doing any golf tournament types activities to attract
It's
them?
in the works. It's in the works. Yeah.
Awesome. What are some of the marketing that you see that's working well for you right now to attract these accredited investors?
I'll be honest, I'm having a pretty good luck with the podcast tour. I've probably been on close to 50 podcasts at this point as a guest. And true story, I had done a podcast interview. Of course, it takes a while for it to be released, but I did a podcast interview, and when it was released, we happened to be doing a deal at that time. And so someone listened to the podcast, they went to our website, registered in our investor portal, saw that we had a live deal going, filled out all their paperwork, and wired $100,000 in the course of 2 hours.
Wow.
With no interaction with me or my team.
Wow.
We were like, wow, that's pretty awesome. If I could just replicate that 100 times, it'd be in good shape. But it can happen. It can happen.
So did you talk to that investor and find out, like, did they have a certain pain point that would have them? They obviously like actively in the market looking for an investment opportunity to act that fast. So yeah, what was the situation?
She's a physician from California, and she had just been hearing about self-storage and heard me on a podcast. I don't even remember which one. And she just, I guess, liked what I said, went to our investor portal. Everything there was set up and ready to go. And so she was able to get all the information she needed. And I guess we were able to set up a nice, seamless process for her. So she just went for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love podcasts too. It's definitely
it's worked great.
Platform.
And as you mentioned before, Tim, we are on social media. So I think it's a holistic thing. It's hard to say, is it podcasting? Is it social media? Is it our email campaigns? It's hard to point to exactly one thing. I think you really need to be in all places.
Yeah, you kind of do, because even when they hear you on the podcast, they're still going to go and research you. And so they'll get to see your social media post, and they get to, it's like, I haven't dated in a long time, but I assume that's how it works with dating too. Like, you research the other person.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And so do you try to get on like a podcast once a week, once a month? Is there because you mentioned podcast tour. So do you have a goal of how often you get on these podcasts?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I am working with a podcast booking agency. I initially, when I started, I was probably doing 2 or 3 a week.
Okay.
And which is great, and it's fun, and I can get out there and tell our story. But what ends up happening is when those get released, they generally take about the same amount of time to be compiled and edited and released. And so I had all this content coming out all at once. And so it was, so just for kind of the marketing, to smooth out the marketing messaging, I've started only doing like maybe once a week. And the other thing too is podcast has a shelf life. Because if I was talking about something a year ago, of course, the world was a lot different than interest rates and whatnot. So I think I'm trying to be a little more intentional now about how I space them out. So I'm finding that about one a week is pretty good.
Gotcha. Do you mind sharing how much is this service costing for the people that might be interested in on?
Yeah, good
hiring
question.
them?
I want to say it's maybe $3,000 for a 12-month stint kind of thing. So it's not
Okay.
super expensive.
Yes,
And could be wrong.
okay. Yeah. But okay, but within a reasonable amount like that.
Yeah, it's
right?
not 30,000. I'm not off by an order of magnitude. So
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's good. That's pretty affordable.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, and then you go on podcasts, you do your social media. Do you have a specific lead gen type funnel that you send people to, or do you send people to your main website? What is the process once someone, I guess, go visit you?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have multiple approaches to our marketing. One is we do have a funnel. So if you're out there scrolling on Facebook before bed or something, you might see an advertisement about learning the secrets of self-storage. So that's that's the top of our funnel. So if you click on that, it'll take you into our funnel where you just fill out some basic information, name, email, phone number, and then it puts you into a series of 7 videos. So the videos are like 3 or 4 minutes to, I think the longest one might be 7 or 8 minutes. It's just touching on different aspects of the self-storage industry, why we like it, what to look out for, how it compares to other asset classes. And so we go through all that. And the call to action for each one of those is twofold. One is to register in our investor portal, or 2, they can schedule a call with our onboarding manager to just get some of their basic questions answered. And if they still have questions from there, then they can schedule a call with me.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
so we generate a lot of leads that way. And then once they're in our system, then we're capturing their email, and then we're sending out value add email messages even after they get through the video messaging, just sharing our thoughts about what's happening in the market. Again, how does self-storage compare to other asset classes, tax advantages, just all those kind of value add things. So we're nurturing, educating, trying to ultimately get them, when we do have a deal to put out to them, to convert them into investors.
That's awesome. Do you have a cost per investor that if you all the marketing that you do, the ads that you run, if you can acquire a customer for X dollar, then that works for you? What is that amount for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tim. I wish I had a good answer for you. But a lot of what I've been talking about is pretty new. And actually, if you don't mind, I'll take this opportunity to share a little bit more about what I've learned in this journey.
Awesome.
So when we were raising money for distressed debt, right, we had our core nice and warm and cozy friends and family and some high net worth investors that we had done really well by and over time. But when we got into storage and we said, hey, this is a real opportunity to grow this business, we realized it was probably my biggest light bulb aha moment was when I was on an Oren Klaff Brain Trust 2-day cold email outreach seminar. For those of you, Oren Klaff is the Pitch Anything guy. In the first 30 seconds of that seminar, I was like, oh my gosh, we're doing everything wrong. Because what we were trying to do was start with our nice, warm, cozy, friendly group of high net worth investors. Some of them are like 9-figure guys, right? So they can write big checks. But what I realized very quickly was if we don't do cold outreach and nurturing education and conversion, we're not going to get where we need to be, because that warm, cozy group, we're going to exhaust that group very quickly. And if we come anywhere close to hitting our growth goals. So this whole new paradigm, if you will, I'm bringing into Bellrose Storage Group is this whole idea of cold outreach. So we're throwing out a really big net. So our cost per prospect, I'll call it, Tim, is probably around 30 or $40. It's pretty small because we're throwing out a big net, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever. And when those folks come into our funnel, it's pretty inexpensive. But when we then have to qualify them and nurture them and educate them, that number gets very small very quickly. And that's okay, because we don't need 1,000 investors to hit our growth goals. Honestly, we have under 100 active investors right now, and we're doing pretty good. We're trying to grow that, of course, but I think we can hit our growth goals, but with only maybe 400 or 500 good solid investors that are going to do every deal with us. And we have a bunch of those already. So we're just trying to grow that. So yeah, so going for the cold outreach and the whole nurturing and educating and just gearing them down and really getting them to be avid fans, raving fans of our business is really what we're gunning for. And it takes a lot of work. And so we're still working on that, Tim, and don't have all the metrics yet. What I do know is that if a $100,000 investor comes into one of our deals, that investor is probably generating about $17,000 or $18,000 of revenue for our business. So I'm okay if my cost for that investor is $1,000, $500. I'm okay with that. And in fact, we're getting very aggressive with our gifting program. So after we close a deal, we're getting very generous with our gifting. So we do a nice handwritten thank you note. We're actually going to start giving out little trophies, which takes me back to my corporate finance days. Whenever we would close a deal, the bank would send us a little acrylic trophy like, hey, Viridian Aerospace raised 140 million, credit facility, blah, blah, blah. So it gives you a cool, warm, fuzzy feeling like, hey, we closed this deal, accomplished this goal. And so we're starting to do stuff like that to really recognize our investors and keep them engaged and excited about us, because of course we want them to invest again, and we want them to invest more money, and we want them to bring their friends. So we want them to have a really awesome experience. So that's where we're at as far as our approach to our investors these days.
That's phenomenal. I love that. When you mentioned cold outreach, you're talking about ads. Are you also talking about cold DMs as well? A lot of people do on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Tim. I am aware of DMing through LinkedIn and whatnot. That's not part of what we're doing right now, but I could see us starting to do that more in the future, because it is another way to just try to get out in front of more potential investors.
Awesome. And what is your growth goal?
So we're looking to acquire 300 million of self-storage over the next 3 years.
Okay, that's almost 10 times what you have now.
Hey, got a big goals.
I love it. I love it. So with this market, coming up, are you seeing that there'll be more opportunities for you to be able to achieve your goals faster? Or do you see any challenges? Do you foresee any challenges to be able to hit your goals given the market condition?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a challenging market, and I'm okay with that, because I think it's going to discourage a lot of folks from coming into self-storage or any other commercial asset class. Our team, we're determined, we're excited, we're committed to our growth path. And so we're going for it. And I think there's going to be folks, unfortunately, who fall by the wayside. I will just one little note for folks out there. I don't know if people are seeing this in their world, but we're actually starting to see a lot of seller financing right now. So we actually have 2 deals coming up where the seller is financing a substantial portion of the purchase. And for those of you who maybe haven't done a deal with seller financing, of course, you're dealing with the seller, you're not dealing with a bank. So there's really hardly any underwriting process. They just want to know that you're a professional organization. You're going to be able to generate the income needed to pay them. And the other thing we're finding there is that they are typically interest only financing, which of course is a beautiful thing for your cash flow. Yeah. So for investment syndications like what we're doing, it gives us the ability to pay our investors a nice, juicy preferred return.
That is phenomenal. So are these direct to sellers, or are you going through brokers as well?
Yeah, we certainly get tons of broker OMs offering memorandums, but yeah, we're finding the most success going direct.
Okay.
And when I mentioned how we got started when we joined the mastermind group in 2019, that was one of our big early takeaways there was, hey, we really need to generate our own leads. And my partner Joe and I looked at each other, we're like, well, we don't know how to do that. So we found through our mastermind community, we found a guy who was really good at generating leads, but he wasn't really a finance guy and he wasn't really a capital raising guy.
Gotcha.
So we had a really nice complementary fit there. And my partner, Tim Kane, now he's part of our ownership group and we've been partners now for 3-4 years. And so that's all going well. We've very complementary skills there. So we have a whole team dedicated to finding off-market deals. So we use offshore VAs, we use onshore VAs, and then we have an internal team. So it's a big part of our business.
That's good. It's awesome. What are some of the favorite tools that you use in your business?
I'm an old-fashioned Excel nerd. So yeah, I used to build the financial models back in my aerospace days. So we still do good old-fashioned projections and discounted cash flow analysis for our deals. But as far as analyzing markets, we have a couple really cool tools that we use. One is called StoreTrack. So it's a database specific to the storage industry where we can enter in the address of a location we want to analyze, and it will give us all kinds of stats about the area, the demographics of the people, and then also the competition. So how many competitors are there? How big are they? Are there any developments coming in the pipeline? And all of that kind of information as well. And pricing trends, which is really important too. So in our investor deck, we like to pull data out of there that shows a nice up and to the right trend in the rates for that market. So we get some great data out of StoreTrack. The other one that's really cool is Tracked IQ, also specific to self-storage. And again, it's a sophisticated mapping tool where we can enter in an address. And it also gives us the competitors and the pricing and that sort of thing. But what it has that I think is really cool and super helpful is it does have housing starts. So again, we're putting our investor deck together. We can say, hey, within a 5-mile radius of this self-storage facility that we're buying, there's 2,500 new housing units coming online in the next 3 years. So that, of course, is going to increase demand in that market. So we'd like to see that. It also has the ability to show us what they call commercial influencers. So it'll show roads being built or new schools coming in or things happening along the commercial corridor for big box stores coming in and that kind of thing. So we can see how that market is developing. And hopefully our location is going to be in or around the path of progress there. So we really like those resources.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. And do you like these like more than, oh my gosh,
Giardi, Radius, or some of the other ones?
CoStar.
Yeah,
like these better since it's specific to self-storage, or they're different?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know that much about CoStar, but my sense is, and I could be wrong, is that's more kind of other commercial and maybe multifamily related.
I see.
These databases are specific to storage.
Gotcha. And then do you know if one of these also sell lists of self-storage owners?
Oh yeah. We buy those lists, and that's the kind of the beginning of our acquisition funnel that our VAs kind of start analyzing and contacting.
I see. Awesome. Tom, it's been a phenomenal interview. You share so much. For the folks that are listening in, want to connect with you, partner with you, invest with you, where would you like to send them?
Sure. Tim, this has been awesome, buddy. I appreciate it so much. Again, my name's Tom Dunkel. I'm the Chief Investment Officer here at Belrose Storage Group. You can find us at belrosestorategroup.com. You can also find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram if you search for Belrose Storage Group, BELROSE Storage Group. And would love to schedule a call with anyone that's interested in learning more about storage, distressed debt. If you want to find out what famous astronaut that I had lunch with, you can reach out to me and I'd be happy to share with you.
That's awesome. So we can expect you to be one of the first to go to Mars? Is that correct?
That's right. I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint who it is. He was the first guy to set foot on the moon.
Wow. Nice. Oh, that's an easy one.
Super nice guy. Very
Wow.
modest guy. Yeah.
Phenomenal. Yes. All right. So I'm going to wrap up this portion of the recording and then we're going to open up for the Q&A here right after. Okay. So thank you everybody for listening in today. And thank you, Tom, so much for sharing with us your wisdom on self-storage and capital raising today.
Thanks, Tim. That was a blast. Appreciate it.